would you look at that? 2023 is unfortunately coming to its spectacular end. We've had some insane releases this year, from RPGs to horror to FPS games. Almost every genre had some sort of representation. There were so many titles that stood out this year that it actually made it hard to come up with a list this year. Our Games of the Year list was created because we wanted to highlight other games we played in the year, just in case we didn't go straight AAA, and to highlight other games that may have impacted us but didn't release this year. But this year there were so many releases, so many stories, and so many hours put into gaming, it made it hard to come up with a list. Well, it made it hard to come up with 4 other games in a list. There's definitely one that stood out this year that was immediately put into the list without a question. We'll get to that in a minute. But with that, these are my top 5 games for 2020. El Paso Elsewhere was definitely a game that would have stayed under my radar if it wasn't for my buddy Mario. He told me about a game that was basically Max Payne 1's nightmare sequences with vampires and monsters. At first I was intrigued but not necessarily sold. Luckily, I got a nice gift from Mario and I've played through the game since then. I grew up on Max Payne 1 and 2. For a kid that grew up in a family that had an Xbox 360 but not necessarily the money to afford every game that came out, most of my games were bought at swap meets. I remember picking up Max Payne 1 and later Max Payne 2 for the original Xbox and using the 360's backwards compatibility to play them. For a long time, these were some of the only games I ever had to play, and I played them again and again, literally wearing out the game, so I couldn't even play it anymore. I say this because El Paso Elsewhere draws very heavily on the Max Payne formula, specifically Max Payne 1. It has the bullet time, it has the weapons, and it has a surreal world to encase all of it. The game stars the protagonist James, who has to delve into the void to stop his old love interest Dracula from completing a ritual that would destroy the world. The game is filled with psychological set pieces taken straight from the head of James and Dracula. Its run and gun bullet time gameplay is fun, and gameplay feels absolutely solid. The best part about this game, though, is the music. The music plays a big part in the levels, telling the mind state of the protagonist James, and also just honestly being batshit crazy. I highly recommend this game to anyone who likes Max Payne or even run and gun shooters. I am so glad Mario sent me this one. Cyberpunk 2077 isn't a game that came out this year, but it's a game that I consistently come back to. I put about 5 playthroughs on this game, and every time I find new ways to play and new things to find. I've already talked about Cyberpunk though extensively on the podcast, so this isn't really going to be a talk about Cyberpunk itself, but go check that out if you want to find out our opinions on the game. CD Projekt Red has been hitting us with insane game-changing updates since its launch, and with the surprise giant update 2.0, a few days later came the expansion Phantom Liberty. Phantom Liberty, in my opinion, is the final cherry on top to an already amazing story. It adds a new area, Dogtown, and new endings, new characters, new weapons, and even vehicles. The expansion itself is basically CD Projekt Red's take on a spy thriller in the cybernetic world of Night City. It also marks the official introduction of the NUSA to 2077's story. The story is filled with deception, stealth, and your typical 007 spy thriller scenes. I enjoyed every second of this expansion, and with its release marks the end for Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red may have crashed out the gate, but they definitely finished the race strong. I can't wait to see what Project Orion or Cyberpunk 2 brings us next. Shout out to Big Booty Nomads. Man, what can I even say about Resident Evil 4? Resident Evil 4 is a game you've most likely played before. It's released on just about every platform at this point, and since its launch has just become this generation's Doom or Skyrim. That being said though, the remake for this game has come out and taken on the crazy task of remaking what is arguably already a perfect game. Did they nail it? Fuck yeah, they did. Resident Evil 4 feels very similar in terms of story and gameplay, enough for a Resident Evil vet to go, oh yeah, they did the thing, every now and again. But it distinguishes itself in ways that still surprises you, even if you've already played Resident Evil 4. The combat is amazing. It draws a lot of things learned from Resident Evil 2 and 3 and ramps them up, with Leon now being a trained government soldier. Parries feel good, knife combat is actually fun to use, and weapons and upgrades are actually fun to collect and use. It actually lets you kind of make you want to use different types of weapons now. The atmosphere of Spain in this game is crazy. The Gothic architecture is ramped up with everything being lit by firelight. This game with an OLED monitor looks stunning. and at times actually pretty scary during the regenerator parts. While I do have some issues, like some of the voice acting in the game just doesn't feel like on the same level as like RE2 Remake, and winds up kind of sounding, you know, just a little phoned in. And the game does arguably feel a little bit shorter than its original counterpart. I loved my experience with the game, and I put at least 4 playthroughs through it. Why did I do that? Just to get those special weapons, I think. RE4 is a new gold standard for remakes, and I can't wait for the eventual RE5 remake. Bravo, Capcom, your comeback is still coming back strong. It's been 13 years since Alan Wake let us know that it isn't a lake, it's an ocean. Since then, we've waited for the answers to come to us in either game form, or at the very least, come to us in a manuscript. The time has come, and Alan Wake 2 dropped, and holy shit, it's one of the best horror games of all time. Remedy really knows how to play with the player's mind, and it's no surprise given games like Control and Max Payne's nightmare scenes, the game is batshit insane. The models and the voice acting in this game is some of the best I've seen in years. The gameplay with switching between Saga and Alan is also insanely well done. I really like that it lets you play the story in whatever order you want. It arguably also has one of the best set pieces this year, We Sing. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't played Alan Wake 2 yet, but Remedy nailed their level design and their live action blending into their in-game gameplay. It's a part of the game that I can't help but rewatch and come back to because god damn it, it's near perfect. For a second though, I want to gush about the sound design. Dude, this game at night with some good headphones is some of the best examples of atmospheric horror. The sounds and shadows talking in the distance, the rustling of papers on the ground, the enemy shouting "Wake!" like from like up close and like distance. It's insane how they just nailed the amount of detail in this game. Shout out to the Poets of the Fall, by the way, also for helping make one of the best action rock opera scenes this year as well. Alan Wake 2 is an amazing sequel to a pretty decent game. After playing this and Control, Remedy has me absolutely hooked for whatever universe they're cooking up. Though I don't think they actually like answered the whole lake and ocean thing. They just kind of made more questions. Baldur's Gate 3 is now my gold standard go-to game to the question, what's the best RPG you've played? I fucking love this game. It is the first time in a very, very long time that I finished a 150 plus hour game and immediately said, screw it, let's start a new one. The characters in this game feel lifelike, and the writing for their motivations, their class types, and backstories is downright fucking amazing. It's been a while since I actually felt immersed with talking with characters, and they didn't sound like some absolute robots written by AI or somebody's like fanfic. The voice actors shine the absolute most here. Each character sounds unique, and they kill it in the performances. Shout out to the narrator. She does an insanely good job at just matching the game's like atmosphere whenever like either a bad, good, or even a scary situation happens. The story itself is pretty simple in the grand scheme of things, with you the player figuring out how to help yourself in your current predicament and who to talk to and help throughout your journey. These choices can minutely or drastically change the course of your story, with each playthrough playing drastically different depending on your build, backstory, and general choices altogether. The gameplay itself is thought-provoking and strategic. I know people have a problem with turn-based, and honestly, to each their own, but I do enjoy the slow, methodic gameplay and appreciate it giving me a real itch to try other D&D stuff as well. I wound up playing like a rogue, and I just lied and stabbed my way through everything, you know? Like some stealth too. Lie, stealth, and stab. And steal? Put that on a t-shirt. Lie, steal, stab, and stealth. That's my motto. That's my go-to. Baldur's Gate 3 is my personal game of the year. It's definitely a labor of love and a once-in-a-while type of game to come out. It honestly truly does feel perfect. It feels like people sat down and thought of every detail and made sure the player was actually having fun playing it. You can tell a lot about the production of a game when the voice actors themselves are friends and enjoy playing their characters outside of the game. I also don't have to tell people about the insane Baldur sweep that happened with almost every award ceremony. They absolutely killed it. I highly recommend and hope the rumble this game brought to the industry kind of inspires other studios to realize that if you put your game, like the labor of love of a game first, people will flock to it and praise it. It doesn't all have to be like some corporate bullshit. Shout out to people built like Karl as well. You are what's keeping society going. And that's it for 2023. There are so many titles that didn't make it to this list that are also really insanely good, and even some I've played even after writing the script. 2023 filled up a backlog that was already long, at least 500 games at this point if you look at my Steam profile, and hopefully I got some time to try some new games in 2024 with that backlog. Thank you guys so much for spending another year with Point in Progress, and I can't wait to do this again in 2024. Take care, and remember, it's not a loop, it's a spiral. Whatever the fuck that means.